It probably takes time and human design to improve it.
Well, of course, I agree. Nobody wants to rock the boat too much. You want to improve things, but keep it steady. And this is, of course, very tricky for China and also for the world, because in a way, 20 years ago, if China went, had a terrible turmoil, something bad happened, its impact in the world economy, in the social order, was not that great. Now, of course, it's much greater. But everything comes with a price. Before, it was really not important. Whatever China decided to do, now it is becoming more important. So, in a way, at the time, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, nobody really cared about the pace of reform. That you go slowly or you go fast, nobody cared. Now, because of the growing impact, everybody wants it to be faster, more in agreement with the rest of the world. So there are gives and takes on both sides.
And do you think the pace of China's reform and evolution is greater than many people in the West expected?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say because the international environment has changed. The situation is completely changed. Therefore, the demand for change in China, from China, has greatly enhanced. It is like a small child. A small child needs a bowl of noodles, and he'll be satisfied. But now we have a giant, and this giant needs many kilograms of meat. So it's a different kind of thing. And therefore, whatever decided in China by Chinese will have enormous impact abroad. And how to balance these things, it will be, I'm afraid, more and more challenging in the future.
I think there are a lot of people are talking about the Chinese way of conducting a public administration. What is your takeaway from the Chinese thinking of doing it? Because obviously you said China is centralizing more power at this time.
Yeah, I think, personally, I agree that now China badly needed some centralization. Because the problem with China was nobody really could take decision, nobody would take responsibility. You had to go through so many channels, so many people. Nobody would bang on the table and say, let's do this or let's do that, because nobody was ultimately responsible. So you had to bring things to the center. And I personally fully agree with that.
I think this makes more sense when China looking at some advanced economies, political systems. When they're back in challenge, being overplayed, nothing is decided and nothing is moved.
Exactly. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. However, it is more important to communicate, to explain the rationale, and to explain also the ultimate goal. Where do you want to go? Because before, it didn't really matter what China decided. Now it matters even more. So if you move even a piece of wood, a little pebble, everybody will, draw attention to that.
But where we're going is that better governance of China also means better chances for the rest of the world. Isn't this what China's been striving for all the time?
Of course, but you have to convince that this is the goal. You cannot just say it. Mm-hmm. You need to convince. It's not just banging over the table, this is good for China and this is good over the world. You have to do a lot of work. And these changes are enormous, bound to impact the world. So I'm afraid it will take a long time to find and build a consensus. The same consensus that rightly so China is trying to find internally. You went through Zhejiang to have some trial periods, see what is working. This same kind of attention, I'm afraid, has to be paid to the outside world, more and more.
I think the past 5 years, probably a good example. The central leadership has been trying to institutionalize the China system by looking at what we've been done over the past 5 years.
Right. I think, well, the government and also the leading party have been very much aware of what's going on, well, internationally. Not only looking at China, of course, well, the major lessons we need to learn from our own practice, particularly from the previous mistakes we made. And also we should open our eyes to look at, all the foreign countries, to learn from their experience, and also certainly some of their, let's say, lessons we also need to be aware of. And for the partisan debates and also more social turmoils generated by a lot of different opinions.
What some people call adversarial politics.
Yeah, is not really the suit for China, and China needs to be aware of all these possibilities and particularly be aware of, the negative aspect. And also China mainly should summarize its own experience. And from the past reform periods, we can see centralization, decentralization, and in some periods, all the members of a Politburo has its own separate fields. And the central authority has been substantially weakened. Mm-hmm. And what was the result is a kind of a chaotic situation which Chinese people say 9 dragons governing the sea. Nothing has been accomplished with efficiency, even with a very clear line of policy. So therefore, I think learning from Chinese political past, we need to really summarize the experience, good things, and also lessons from the negative aspects. And then we have to look at the current situation and also future tasks, what we should accomplish. And therefore, we carefully design what is the proper and suitable institution, kind of leading mechanism be established. So I think based on that perspective, the current amendment of the Constitution and all these big moves are suitable for Chinese future development, which certainly will benefit not only China, but the international community.
And also, many people say China is exceptional in a way, because in China, this kind of a unified system has been in practice for over 2,000 years. That's why centralized power makes sense.
That is centralized. This centralized power, China has been China for 2,000 years, and other countries.
And the Chinese system has been kind of a unified system.
It has been
a bureaucracy that's working all the way up.
Yes, but China has changed dramatically in the past 100 years, I would say, and it's changed dramatically in the past 40, 50 years. You see, China in the past, for 2,000 years, over 2,000 years, produced all of its GDP along the 2 rivers. But after the 1990s, for the first time ever, its GDP has been produced along the coast. Before, his GDP was produced by some state enterprises, all in the imperial system under the control of mandarins. The mandarins were really important. But now, since 40 years, the driving force of China has been small and medium enterprises, private entrepreneurs, private practices. What I mean is China is dramatically changing now and has dramatically changed now from the past. It was isolated before, completely isolated for 2,000 years. Now it's part of integrated world. So yes, you need to have the past, to consider the past, but you have to consider the world, because you are integrated in the world like never ever in the past history.
What does this change of economic makeup should affect the political institutional change?
I think, for instance, this Anti-Corruption Institute understands that corruption works in a different way than in the past. It's no longer a party, no longer the old institution that can work. You need a new institution. You need a new mechanism.
This is what happened.
Exactly. Because it is different. So, in the future, more adaptation may be necessary, more changes may be necessary. The past is important, but we know that the changes are dramatic as never ever in the past thousands of years of history. So, we have to be careful, I would say.
Say several concerns you have about the adaptation.
I'm concerned, but I'm also optimist. That is, you have to see the problems, you have to see the issues, you have to see the challenges, but I trust that China will find a way, will find a path to overcome these problems.
What kind of problems? Be more
specific. The problem is adaptation. There is the adaptation of the economy, of its economy, to the political system, and the two don't seem to me in balance, and the integration of China in the world. For thousands of years, China was basically isolated. Now, 40% of China's GDP depends on the world. It is part of the world like never before. So it needs to adapt. Of course, the world needs to understand China, needs to adapt to China, but also the other way around.
But isn't it the Chinese government is that that's why we need more centralized power at the party leadership, so that those reforms can be unfolded more efficiently.
I agree.
And be in line with international practice. Because vested interests are in the way.
I do agree, and I do hope that this is the path. To have these changes, you need centralized power. You don't need to bargain all the time with all these small powers. So if the central government comes to an idea, it can put it in practice without too much bargaining. I hope this is the future.
But there is a caveat to what Francesco has been saying, that the central authority should have access to all the information from down below. That will guarantee it will make the right choices. Do we have a system that makes sure the central leadership will have access to all information?
I believe so. And since the reform democracy is one of the targets, the national goal for the reform, not only GDP increase, but also to make China more democratic and to make the people's participation more viable. So all these are one of the big items of the reform. So we could look at the legislation, and for every pieces of legislation so far, the major pieces and also the regulations by the executive, we can find their draft on the website. Probably not every piece, but most of the major pieces. Common people can find all this draft put on the website for public opinion, public criticism.
So the government is responsive to the signals, to the signals at the grassroots.
That's right. And also for all these major policy decisions, there have been gone through various means of opinion soliciting, or kind of the meetings for consultancy, etc. There are multiple ways for ensure all these decisions are not made by a single person or a small group of persons, but also reflect the public opinion and really meet the social demands. So I think there has been a lot of ways to make people's participation and democratic decision-making process. That's what is called in China the deliberate democracy, rather than the kind of multi-party democracy. But different country has different traditions, different ways of governance. And China, based on its own history, based on the current experience, and also carefully analyzing what are the tasks ahead of us, I think there has been a good emphasis on democratic way of decision making.
Before we carry out our discussions, I'd like to remind you this is a special coverage on the NPC's third plenum. The NPC deputies have just elected 30 scrutineers for the voting of the amendment of the Constitution, which is now going on inside the Great Hall of the People. We'll keep you updated on the latest results from those ballot counting. Let's turn back to our discussions here. Many people say in the West, China's system is an autocracy. The Chinese scholars, some say, it is a meritocracy married with the Chinese Communist Party. You agree that this is a meritocracy system?
Well, there is a meritocracy, but there is also meritocracy in the West. The West adopted a meritocratic system. The bureaucracy is a meritocratic system from China through the translation of the Jesuits in the 17th century. Basically, all the bureaucracy, all the official bureaucracy in the West was adopted from China. So there is bureaucracy and there is meritocracy in the West too. This is, I wouldn't say meritocracy, it is just Chinese. It's been because the West has been sinified for 200-300 years in this respect.
And this Chinese meritocracy problem, the problem is how do you keep every member of this bureaucracy integrity intact?
Yes, and the problem is...
And that's why we have this anti-corruption
exactly.
system.
And that is the problem, who checks the custodians. This is an old political issue. It is in China, it is in India, it is in the West, everywhere. The balancing and the checking of the custodians, the checks and balances are hard to find a suitable solution. It changes with time. It changed with time. We have in Europe a system, in America a system. This was not always the same. It changed. We have a system in China. We see this system changing in China. Perhaps it will change in the future. This is all I'm saying.
But is it changing with the time in the right direction, in your opinion?
In the right direction, we don't know what is the direction exactly.
The direction now is more centralized power, there's accountability.
I think in this moment, now the direction is right. China needed more centralization of power, fewer people to decide more things. You had in the past lots of people deciding few things. You have to have the opposite to challenge, to meet the challenges of China and of the world. Fewer people making more and bigger decisions. This is the right move. What will be the next move? I don't know. It depends not only on China, but also on the pressure and the concerns of foreign countries. We shall see.
But this is also an issue of, is this a new social contract with these people? And what we are now doing is that the NPC deputies will cast their votes on whether or not amend the Constitution as it is proposed by the CPC. Do you think we have wide-ranging political support of what the CPC has proposed about what the country should be headed?
Well, by talking with ordinary people and also looking at the newspaper report, and we can come to a kind of agreement that the majority of the people are supporting the current amendments, and also pretty sure these amendments will be passed by the National People's Congress, even though there are different opinions still existing. But I think, these opinions certainly will make the government and also NPC more aware of the possible problems and risks for future, but that will not actually stop the current amendments and the institutionalization.
About the popular support, let's look at the mechanism first. This was first proposed by the CPC at the 19th CPC Congress, and according to Wang Chen, the deputy NPC legislator-in-chief, he said the CPC has solicited opinions from grassroots CPC members and government officials, in thousands of them, and then they made the proposal to the Central Committee. What do you make of the legitimacy of this? By soliciting opinions from grassroots CPC members, make a proposal at the CPC and then at the NPC Congress?
Well, the soliciting of the opinions are not only confined within the delegates of NPC. The opinions are solicited from different provinces, different professions, and also from different fields. So I think there is a wide solicitation of the opinions and the suggestions of the amendments, even though within limited scale, not for all the masses, everyone to participate. I think there are kind of sufficient ground for getting different opinions for the amendments so far.
So it's not just a top-down system. There is bottom-up.
Actually, it's a kind of carefully designed and implemented process from the top-down, kind of solicitation, and amendment of the Constitution was the decision, idea of the Central Communist Party Committee, and also in order to make it more reflective of the different opinions, they sent out this idea for amendments to different provinces
for
feedback. And then various meetings have been conducted in order to get all these different opinions. And finally, they consolidate all these opinions into the current amendment proposal. So even though not soliciting opinion from every citizen, is soliciting opinion from different sectors, different provinces.
So it's a representative process.
It's a representative. Yeah,
but in a condensed way.
In a condensed way. And I think, the kind of concern is that if throughout this idea to the whole society, there would be different opinions and generate probably more debates rather than consensus. So deliberate democracy is a way to get people to discuss the various opinions sufficiently, rather than just voicing your voice loudly. So this is a particular Chinese way of developing the deliberate democracy.
So it's basically still a trade-off between efficiency and fairness, because you have to make a choice. You want to make decisions quick and efficient. You also want to make the decision fair and just.
Yes, I think it is a move in the right direction, and especially in the direction China needs now. That is, to try to bring things together, to create a better center of decision makers. Professor Wang mentioned the time when there were 9 dragons governing the sea. I think in a way it was worse than the division of power in the West, because people say, in the West the division of power is ineffective, one power blocks one another. In fact, in China, one could argue that at the time there were 9 powers blocking one another. So it was even more chaotic then. Now you have to bring things to one center, one main engine for change.
And decision maker.
And this is a move in the right direction in many ways, I think.
At least for now. They have a political agreement on that. You've been watching a special program on the NPC Congress. The NPC deputies are casting their votes on amendment of China's constitution. We'll keep you posted as our coverage continues. The biggest annual political gathering in the world's most populous nation. Some topics to deliberate and discuss. A new state leadership lined up. A draft revision to the Constitution. From March the 3rd, CGTN takes you right to the heart of Beijing for a behind-the-scenes look at how 5,000 political representatives and advisors get things done. And how their decisions can have a ripple effect across the world. Join us on CGTN for an insight look into the Two Sessions 2018.
We travel across the country to gauge the most pressing issues.
We talk to the people about their greatest concerns.
And explore the changes closely watched around the world.
It's insane.
Not come to an end.
Ultimate power.
Not only for the channel expansion and reality.
Join us for a special coverage of China's political season and see how the new government launches into its new era.
Two Sessions is an exciting time. China has a rich history, but with lofty goals for the future.
As an African journalist covering the Two Sessions, I will share my insights into what the policies entail and how they will affect my continent and the rest of the world.
1.4 billion people heading in the same direction. How will the policies of the coming days keep the country on track?
Controlling financial risk is most critical. Broadening anti-corruption is most meaningful. President Xi Jinping's vision for 2035 and for 2050 is most enduring.
A team of journalists from China and around the world looking at critically important issues that will help define the 21st century.
The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
If we move together, we can have a dance.
Straight into the eyes.
Poverty alleviation achievement in China is unprecedented.
To me, it's a responsibility.
Straightforward and straight into the new era.
To know more and to sense more.
Straight Talk with Tian Wei from the Two Sessions.
And you've been watching our special coverage on the NPC session, the third plenum of the 13th National People's Congress. We've been talking about popular support. Any political institution and any political decision is actually a response to people's demands and aspirations. Do we have enough political debate among our people so that those decisions actually reflect what the people want, in which direction the country should be headed? Mr. Wang, what's your sense?
Well, as we already discussed, it's a kind of representative democracy. It's not going to the whole society asking for different opinions. But so far, I think the scope for all these representatives and the selected areas and the professions and the fields, different opinions has been quite fully expressed. So in that regard, I would say the current amendment proposal is based on sufficient opinion ground.
And do people have legitimate concern when they worry if there's too much centralization of power on leadership? There might be risks that they are making wrong decisions. And is there enough institutional checks on this?
Well, apparently there are different opinions, and also people do have this kind of worries, particularly considering our past experience during the Cultural Revolution and personal account. Now we have the consolidated, leading groups within the party, within the government. Certainly this kind of worry and concern are legitimate, I would say. But nevertheless, if we go into details, we find the change of the term limit is not, the change of the term system. And also there are more kind of institutional building, try to put everyone, including the leaders, under the review, under the check, according to the party constitution and national law. No one is above the law. So this is a particular slogan and has been already enshrined into a lot of documents. has been reflected into our administrative laws, constitution. So in that regard, I don't think China will go completely back to the Cultural Revolution, that, well, the personal account will be reintroduced. I don't think the majority of the people will accept that.
There should be still communication problems because the leader has a vision and the leader is asking a new pact with his people to deliver on those promises. And he's saying that we need some flexibility of the system in the longer time. Okay, we have breaking news. Do we have this confirmed? We have this breaking news at the NPC Congress about the amendment of the Constitution. Do we have it? Yes, we have been confirmed that China's National People's Congress has just voted to pass the draft amendments to the Constitution. This came at the third plenum of the 13th NPC first session. The NPC just provided a list of the overseen ballot, and after the process, finally the Constitution amendment has been passed by more than 2,000 NPC delegates at the third plenum of the NPC. Let's go live to the NPC Congress venue inside the Great Hall of the People, and then Zhang Dejiang, the chair of the NPC Standing Committee, will deliver a report on the NPC's committee's work. This is happening after the over 2,000 NPC deputies just to pass the amendment of the Constitution as outlined and proposed by the CPC committee. Top legislator Zhang Dejiang.
Fellow deputies, on behalf of the Standing Committee of the 12th National People's Congress, I will now present to you a report on its work for your deliberation. Let me begin with a review of our major initiatives over the past 5 years. The past 5 years have been truly extraordinary in the course of the development of the party and the country. The Party Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, has united the Chinese people of all ethnic groups and led them in implementing the five-sphere integrated plan and a four-pronged comprehensive strategy. We have seen historic achievements and shifts in the course of the party and the country. Socialism with Chinese characteristics has entered a new era. Under the strong leadership of the Party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, the 12th NPC Standing Committee has fully implemented all the guiding principles from the party's 18th and 19th National Congresses, earnestly studied and observed Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, and remained committed to the unity of party leadership, the running of the country by the people, and law-based governance. We have upheld the authority and core position of General Secretary Xi Jinping and safeguarded the authority and centralized, unified leadership of the Party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core. We have fulfilled our duties as set out in the Constitution and the law, broken new ground in all dimensions of the work of People's Congresses, and made significant theoretical and practical innovations in developing the People's Congress systems. With these efforts, we have made major strides in developing socialist democracy and the rule of law. Over the past 5 years, the 12th NPC and its Standing Committee have enacted 25 laws, revised 127 laws, passed 46 decisions on legal questions and other major issues, and issued 9 legal interpretations. Our legislative work has been characterized by the great number, importance, pace, and effectiveness of activities. We inspected the enforcement of 26 laws and 1 decision on legal issues, heard and deliberated 83 work reports, passed 7 resolutions, and conducted 15 special inquiries and 22 research projects. We have improved our oversight mechanisms and made our oversight work more effective. We ratified a total of 43 treaties and agreements with foreign countries and international conventions China had concluded, and decided on or approved the appointment or removal of a number of officials of state bodies. First, we strengthened legislation in key areas and improved the Chinese socialist system of laws with the Constitution at the center, producing draft amendments to the Constitution. As China's fundamental law, the Constitution provides a general charter for governing the country and embodies the will of the party and the people. Taking into account the overall context and strategic requirements for upholding and developing socialism with Chinese characteristics in a new era, the 19th Party Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, decided to amend the Constitution. At its second plenary session, the Central Committee deliberated and passed recommendations on amendments to be made. The 12th NPC Standing Committee then moved forward with this work in line with legal procedures. At our 32nd meeting held in January this year, we discussed in depth the Party Central Committee's recommendations and prepared a draft of the constitutional amendments to be made, which has been submitted to this session of the 13th NPC for deliberation. Every one of us on the Standing Committee approves and supports the Party Central Committee's decision on amending the Constitution. We unanimously believe that writing the major theoretical viewpoints, policies, and principles set down at the 19th National Party Congress, particularly Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, into China's fundamental law is of crucial and far-reaching significance in that it will ensure the Constitution improves and develops in step with the times and provide a firm constitutional guarantee for upholding and developing socialism with Chinese characteristics in a new era. Improving laws and institutions for ensuring enforcement of the Constitution. We established Constitutional Day to raise public awareness and promote the spirit of the Constitution. We developed the system of pledging constitutional allegiance, under which all officials must publicly swear allegiance and loyalty to the Constitution, the country, and the people when taking office. In line with constitutional provisions, we adopted the decision on granting amnesty to certain prisoners on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the victory in the Chinese War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and in the global war against fascism. We enacted the law on national medals and titles of honor to ensure implementation of the system of national awards and honors stipulated in the Constitution. We adopted the national anthem law, which, together with the national flag law and the national emblem law, already in implementation, safeguards the dignity of the important national symbols and images established by the Constitution. Moving faster to develop laws related to national security. Adopting a holistic approach to national security, we maintained firm political resolve and acted at the right time to enact a number of important laws, including the National Security Law, the Counter-Espionage Law, the Anti-Terrorism Law, the Law on Administration of Activities of Overseas National Non-Governmental Organizations in the mainland of China, the Cybersecurity Law, the National Intelligence Law, the Law on National Defense Transportation, the Military Facilities Protection Law, and the Nuclear Safety Law. Together, these laws provide a strong legal guarantee for safeguarding China's national security and other core interests. Advancing the compilation of the Civil Code and enacting the general provisions of civil law. Developing a civil code is a formidable task that generations of Chinese legislators have been working on since the founding of the People's Republic of China. The Standing Committee elected to adopt a two-step approach to this work. First, developing the general provisions of civil law, which is the leading part of the civil code, and then compiling the individual books of the civil code, striving to form a complete civil code by 2020. Following 3 readings and repeated modifications by the Standing Committee, the draft of the general provisions of civil law was adopted at the 5th session of the 12th NPC in 2017. The promulgation of the general provisions marks the completion of the opening part of China's civil code and sets down a solid foundation for developing a civil code with Chinese characteristics that embodies the spirit of the times and reflects the will of the people. At present, work on compiling the individual books is right underway. Strengthening legislation for the socialist market economy. We issued guidelines on implementing the principle of taxation legality, and to this end, charted a reform path and produced a legislative agenda running until 2020. We enacted the Environmental Protection Tax Law, the Tobacco Leaf Tax Law, the Vessel Tonnage Tax Law, and revised the law on corporate income tax. We examined and overhauled laws on property rights protection. We also revised the anti-unfair competition law, the law on promoting small and medium-sized enterprises, the law on farmers' specialized cooperatives, the law on promoting the application of scientific and technological advances, the standardization law, the trademark law, the advertising law, and the enacted the tourism law and the asset appraisal law. Using legislation to promote core socialist values. We adopted decisions on instituting Martyrs' Day, Victory Day in the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression, and National Memorial Day for the Nanjing Massacre victims, and deliberated the draft of a law on the protection of heroes and martyrs. These helped foster our national spirit with patriotism at its core. By enacting the law on guaranteeing public cultural services, the law on public libraries, and the film industry promotion law, we remedied the deficiencies in legislation in the cultural sector. Using legislation to ensure improvements to the people's well-being. To meet the people's growing demands for a beautiful environment, we have acted to develop the strictest possible system of environmental protection laws. As part of this endeavor, we revised the Environmental Protection Law, amended the Air Pollution Prevention and Control Law, the Water Pollution Prevention Control Law, the Maritime Environment Protection Law, and the Wildlife Protection Law, and established public interest litigation systems for environmental protection and resource conservation. We revised the Food Safety Law to help ensure every bite of food is safe. We also enacted the Charity Law, the Anti-Domestic Violence Law, the Special Equipment Safety Law, revised the Law on Workplace Safety and the Law on the Protection of Consumers' Rights and Interests, and passed Amendment 9 to the Criminal Law. Taking firm steps to uphold constitutional order in Hong Kong and Macau SARs, as stipulated in China's constitution and the basic laws of the 2 regions. Exercising powers entrusted to us by China's constitution and the basic laws of the Hong Kong SAR, we issued a decision on issues related to electing a chief executive by universal suffrage in the Hong Kong SAR, thus clarifying the direction and basic institutional arrangements for gradually and systematically developing democracy in the region. We also produced an interpretation of Article 104 of the Basic Law of the Hong Kong SAR, which has served to resolutely deter and oppose any attempt at Hong Kong independence and safeguard the sanctity of China's constitution and the basic law of the Hong Kong SAR. We approved the cooperation agreement between the mainland and Hong Kong on the co-location arrangement so that both sides can carry out customs clearance at the port established at the West Kowloon station of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express Rail Link. In line with China's constitution and the basic law of Hong Kong, we adopted the decision on adding the national anthem law to Annex 3 of the basic laws of Hong Kong and Macau to ensure its observance in the 2 regions. Making fresh progress in ensuring lawmaking is well-conceived, democratic, and law-based. We have strengthened organization, coordination in legislative work and have given full play to the principal role of people's congresses and the standing committees in lawmaking. We have, for the 4 consecutive years since 2015, submitted drafts of important laws to the NPC for deliberation. Further, we have established the system under which special committees of the NPC and working bodies of its standing committee organize the drafting of important legislation. These steps have resulted in 70 pieces of legislation being drafted or submitted for deliberation over the past 5 years.
We have encouraged legislative bodies to play a greater role in voicing, balancing, and adjusting the interests of different sectors of society in order to build the broadest consensus in legislation. We have formulated procedures for collecting and discussing legislative items, for carrying out debates and consultation on major legislative changes that affect the interest of different groups, and for conducting third-party evaluation of legislative items. We have improved the system of legislative advisors and established a system for staying connected with the local communities on legislative matters. We made a regular practice to solicit public opinions on draft of legislation following both first and further readings, a step which has seen 81 drafts of legislation being released for public comments. Starting with the first piece of legislation on this standing committee adopted, we have implemented a system of carrying out evaluation before promulgation to make lawmaking better conceived and more meticulous, and to ensure that every law we enact stands up, is workable, and produces the desirable effect. Second, we leverage the guiding and driving role of legislation and ensured all reform have a legal basis and proceed smoothly. Ensuring law-based implementation of the reform of the national supervision system, acting in line with the party central committee's decision, reform of the national supervision system, we issued a decision on carrying out trials in the reform in Beijing, Shanxi, Zhejiang, and thereafter a decision on extending the trials to the rest of the country, thereby providing legal support for the orderly advancement of the reform. We channeled energy into drafting a supervision law, and after holding 2 readings and soliciting public opinions, we have produced a draft of the law, which has been submitted to this session for deliberation. Improving the mechanism for issuing authorization and reform decisions. We issued authorization and reform decisions in accordance with the law for cases when proposed reform conflict with existing laws, conditions for revising relevant law did not exist, and reform measures that's needed to undergo preliminary trials. We heard and deliberated reports on pilot reforms at appropriate junctures and strengthened supervision and evaluation of their progress. For reform measures requiring further exploration, we decided to either extend the trial period or launch new trials with a view to further refining reform measures. For those proving to be effective in practice, we revised relevant laws to allow for their application in more regions. Over the past 5 years, we have issued a total of 21 authorization and reform decisions to support reform on pilot-free trade zones, rural collective land ownership, the judicial system, national defense, and the armed forces. Strengthening our work on enacting, revising, abolishing, and interpreting laws related to reform. For specific articles across law that are odds with reform requirements, our approach has been to make coordinated revision to these laws by putting forward multiple drafts at the same time. In the past 5 years, we deliberated and passed 15 decisions revising law adopting this approach, which have resulted in coordinated revision being made to 95 laws. This approach has led to progress in reform in government review and approval and professional qualification verification, and has boosted the vitality of the market and society. Responding to the party's Central Committee's major decisions on reforming and adjusting China's policy on birth control, we moved quickly to revise the population and family planning law. We issued a decision on abolishing law and regulation pertaining to re-education through labor. We produced an interpretation of certain articles in the criminal law and the criminal procedure law. 3. We improved oversight mechanisms to strengthen oversight over the enforcement of the Constitution and the law and over the work of the State Council, the Supreme People's Court, and Supreme People's Procuratorate, improving law enforcement inspection mechanism and special inquiries. We made inspecting law enforcement a priority in our oversight work, increasing the number of inspection programs per year to 6 since 2015. Inspection teams have seen a cumulative participation figure of 96 for members of the Chairperson Council who headed up the teams, and a deputy participation figure of around 900, which includes members of the Standing Committee and Special Committees. Inspections have targeted pressing problems with the goal of establishing the actual circumstances, pinpointing the causes, making pertinent suggestions, and pushing for remediations. In line with these goals, we have developed a work procedure covering the completion inspection processes, which constitute the 6 steps to subject selection, organization, reporting, deliberation, remediation, and feedback. We issued guidelines on improving specific inquiries, requiring that questions are to the point and answers are based on fact, so that people's concerns are voiced and responded to in this process. Over the past 5 years, the total attendance of leading officials from the State Council and other relevant departments that special inquiries to hear comments and answers for questions was 155. As a result, law enforcement inspection and special inquiry have become more impactful and authoritative and have come to play a greater role in making the NPC's oversight more effective and helping relevant departments improve their work. Developing new mechanism for the review and oversight of government budget and financial accounts. Revised the budget law to enrich provisions on strengthening review and oversight of government budget and final accounts by People's Congress, and work towards a comprehensive, procedure-based, transparent budget system that uses well-conceived standards and imposes effective constraint. We improved the mechanism under which the State Council report to the NPC Standing Committee on the rectification of problems discovered in auditing, and heard and deliberated its report on the work in each of the past 3 years. We put in place a system through which the State Council reports to the NPC Standing Committee on the management of state-owned assets. We issued guidelines on People's Congress, expanding the focus of their budget review and oversight to cover expenditure, budget, and policy, improve the mechanism for soliciting opinions from deputies and the public prior to review of government budgets, moved forward with the integrate outline oversight of budget, and ensure review of object budget and financial accounts and real-time online oversight over the whole process of budget implementation. Strengthening follow-up oversight to help make gains in the 3 battles against potential risk, poverty, and pollution. In the concerned fight to foretell and diffuse major risk, we approved the implementation of ceiling on local government debt and heard deliberate reports on local government debt management, emphasizing the need to clearly establish the total amount of debt, tighten debt regulation, control debt expansion, and reduce outstanding debts. We deliberated reports on the final account of the central government on the implementation of budget and on preventing financial risks, reviewed and approved central government financial accounts and revision of the central government's budget for each year, and strengthened supervision over the use of transfer payment and central government special funding for key sectors such as science and technology, water conservancy, and education. As part of the national endeavor to combat poverty, we heard and deliberated the State Council's report on this work on 2 separate occasions and held inquiries. Carried out continuous oversight throughout the past 5 years over the government's handling of 127 key suggestions focused on poverty reduction in areas with large ethnic minority population and a revolutionary basis area when inspecting the implementation of the law on regional ethnic autonomy and conducted research on reinvigorating the former Central Soviet area in southern Jiangxi. In a nationwide battle to prevent and control pollution, we inspected enforcement of environmental protection law on prevention and control of environmental pollution caused by solid waste, the air pollution prevention and control law, and 3 other environmental laws. We heard and deliberated the State Council's report on the state of the environment and the fulfillment of environmental protection targets for the last 2 years, and 7 other reports it produced on topics such as ecological compensation, the building of natural reserves, and grassland ecological conservation. These efforts have given impetus to pronounced environmental problems. Strengthening oversight over economic work to promote implementation of the new development philosophy. Examined and approved the 13th five-year plan and heard and deliberated a midterm evaluation report on the implementation of the 12th five-year plan and yearly report on the plans for national economic and social development. Our work has helped ensure fulfillment of the major economic and social development objectives. Focusing on promoting supply-side structural reform and expanding and strengthening the real economy, we heard and deliberated reports on the transformation and upgrading of the manufacturing industry and on the application of information technologies in industrialization, and expected enforcement of the product quality law, the law on promoting the application of scientific and technological advances, and patent law, to ensure development of agriculture in rural areas and sustain growth in rural income. We heard and deliberated reports on issues such as developing the new countryside, rural land contracting, rural financial reform and development, and scientific and technological innovation in agriculture and forestry, and inspected enforcement of the agriculture law and the seed law. To promote balanced development between regions and between urban and rural areas, we heard and deliberated reports on the large-scale development of the Western region and urbanization, using a variety of oversight methods to ensure and improve in the course of China's development, to ensure people's safety in their work and lives. We carry out an inspection on the enforcement of food safety law following its revision, and in the same year, heard and deliberated the State Council's feedback report on how it has responded to our inspection report and comments. We inspected implementation of the workplace safety law, the road traffic safety law, the cyber security law, and the law on protection of consumers' rights and interests, and heard and deliberated reports on workplace safety, drug administration, and prevention control of infectious disease. We inspected the enforcement of the law on vocational education, the law on compulsory education, the law on the protection of minors, and the law on guaranteeing the rights and interests of senior citizens. To promote equitable access to basic public services, we heard and deliberated reports on the development of urban and rural social security systems, the reform of the medical and healthcare system, and the development of the system of public cultural services.
Strengthening oversight of the work of the judiciary to safeguard judicial impartiality. We heard and deliberated 15 reports by the Supreme People's Court and the Supreme People's Procuratorate, and strengthened supervision over work relating to judicial reform, judicial opponents, administrative hearings, and fight against corruption. We supported and promoted judicial bodies to see they fully implement the Party Central Committee's major decisions and plans on deepening judicial structural reform and exercise their judicial and procuratorial powers impartially and in accordance with the law. All this has helped to improve judicial credibility. Fulfilling our constitutional oversight duty and improving the normative document recording and review system. To facilitate the recording and review of normative documents, we implemented a coordinating mechanism, developed work procedures, and established nationally unified information platform. This has enabled us to meet the requirements that all normative documents must be kept on record, all documents on record must be reviewed, and any error discovered must be rectified. In the first for the NPC Standing Committee, we heard and deliberated a report on the recording and review of normative documents. Over the past 5 years, we have received a total of 4,778 normative documents submitted for recording and review, reviewed 188 administrative regulations and judicial interpretations, carried out targeted review of local statutes in key areas, and carefully examined 1,527 suggestions on our review work from citizens and organizations. If any review document was found to be at odds with the law or inappropriate, we urged the formulating body to make necessary corrections. With this, we have ensured the execution of the central leadership's orders and prohibitions, compliance with the constitution and the law, the unity of the country's legal system. Fourth, we deepened and expanded our work related to deputies to give full play to their role. Maintaining good communication with deputies and the people, we established and observed systems for members of the Chairperson's Council and the Standing Committee to maintain contact with NPC deputies. This has resulted in direct communication between Chairperson's Council members and 87 deputies and between Standing Committee members and 333 deputies. We expanded the channels for deputies to participate in the work of the Standing Committee and Special Committees. Seeing a deputy attendance of over 1,500 in law enforcement inspections and 1,600 at the Standing Committee meetings in a non-voting capacity. We have achieved the goal of ensuring that all local-level NPC deputies attend at least one Standing Committee meeting in a non-voting capacity during their tenure. We improved the system for issuing circulars to deputies on important work of the Standing Committee and Special Committees. We formulated guidelines on helping deputies maintain close contact with the people and organized research projects and inspection tools for deputies to ensure that the channels for reflecting social conditions and public sentiment operate smoothly. Ensuring deputies' proposals are examined and suggestions are handled more efficiently. Over the past 5 years, deputies to the 12th NPC submitted 2,366 proposals and 41,353 suggestions. Every year, we heard and deliberated reports of special committees on their examination of deputies' proposals and heard reports from the Standing Committee's General Office and relevant departments on the handling of deputies' suggestions. These reports were distributed to all deputies. Of the proposals submitted by deputies, 514 relate to 59 legislative items that have been deliberated and adopted. 153 relate to 12 legislative items that are currently under deliberation, and 37 concern 22 oversight tasks which have already been carried out. Departments charged with handling deputies' suggestions have taken this as an opportunity to improve the conduct and work and have strived to process and give feedback on every single suggestion referred to them. We merged 860 suggestions relating to issues of common concern to deputies into 91 key suggestions and required relevant NPC Standing Committees to oversee their handling by relevant departments, resolving some major and difficult problems of immediate concern to the people, helping deputies improve their thinking and conduct, and strengthening supervision to see the fully fulfill their duties. We improved the system of study and training for deputies, holding 22 study sessions with a cumulative attendance of 520 to ensure that every local level NPC deputy gets to attend during their tenure at least one study session on matters relating to their duties. Review of deputies' qualifications was strengthened. We supported electoral bodies in supervising the duty, performance, and activities of the deputies in accordance with the law and in urging the deputies to observe the Constitution and the law in an exemplary manner and cultivate a positive image as deputies to People's Congresses. Fifth, we improved the People's Congress system to strengthen the foundation for state power and the party's long-term governance. Strengthening the work and development of People's Congresses at the county and township levels. Within China's 5-level People's Congress system, People's Congresses at the county and township levels play a special and crucial role. Based on a research project carried out over 2 years, we developed the guidelines on strengthening the work and development of People's Congresses at these 2 levels, which was submitted to the Party Central Committee for approval and dissemination. In step with this, we amended the organic law of the local People's Congresses and local People's Governments, the electoral law for the National People's Congresses and local People's Congresses, and the law on deputies to National People's Congresses and deputies to local People's Congresses. There is a broad consensus among colleagues in local People's Congresses that these steps represent the best in the 5 years and helping to resolve the pronounced problems long holding back their work. We convened a conference on strengthening the work and development of county and township level People's Congresses and a meeting to exchange experience in this regard. We provided training to the leading standing committee members of 2,850 county level People's Congresses. And a new round of training has been initiated in 2017. Thanks to the concerted efforts of all sides, we have seen People's Congresses at the county and township levels taking on a brand new look in their work and development. Granting local legislative powers to all cities with subsidiary districts. At its 3rd session in 2015, the 12th NPC adopted a decision on revising the legislation law. The revised law grants local legislative powers to cities with subsidiary districts and defines the scope and limits of these powers. This represents a further improvement to China's legislative system. In addition to the 31 provinces, autonomous regions and municipalities directly under the central government, and the 49 relatively large cities that already had local legislative powers prior to the revision. Another 274 administrative areas now also enjoy these powers, including 240 cities with subsidiary districts, 30 autonomous prefectures and 4 prefecture-level cities without subsidiary districts. Over the past 3 years, the People's Congresses of cities and autonomous prefectures newly granted local legislative powers have formulated 595 local regulations providing a strong legal underpinning for strengthening and making innovations in local governance. To better guide the legislative work of local People's Congresses, we have held 5 national forums on local legislation and 8 training sessions on legislative work to strengthen the guidance to local People's Congresses. Safeguarding the sanctity of People's Congress system. Implementing the Party Central Committee's decision and arrangements, we revoked, in accordance with the law, the qualifications of 45 deputies to the 12th NPC elected by Liaoning Provincial People's Congress for bribing voters. Acting on the basis of the Constitution and relevant legal principles, we made creative institutional arrangements to promptly and appropriately handle problems arising from this voting bribery case in Liaoning Province. In organizing, according to law, the election of deputies to the 13th National People's Congress and guiding the election of new deputies to local People's Congresses, we have drawn on the lessons learned from the voting bribery case in Liaoning Province and in Hengyang City of Hunan Province and used a combination of strict preventative measures and disciplinary regulations to ensure that elections are honest and based on integrity. 6. We strengthen the NPC's international exchanges to serve China's major country diplomacy. Strengthening friendly exchanges with foreign parliaments. We received 275 parliamentary delegations on visits to China and organized 311 Chinese delegations to overseas countries. We signed 21 cooperation agreements with the parliaments of 19 countries and the Interparliamentary Union and established mechanisms for regular exchanges and carried out 65 exchange activities with the European Parliament, the parliaments of 21 countries, including Russia, the United States, and other countries. For the first time, we received a delegation of parliamentary leaders of 7 Nordic and Baltic countries. We actively engaged in multilateral parliamentary diplomatic activities. In my capacity as chairman of the NPC Standing Committee, I attended the 4th World Conference of Speakers of Parliament and also the Assembly of the IPU in what was a first for the chairman of the NPC Standing Committee. On these occasions, I talked about China's stand and propositions on issues like alleviating poverty, peaceful development, and great democracy in international relations. We also played a constructive role in the Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum, the BRICS Parliamentary Forum, the Latin American Parliament, and other international and regional parliamentary organizations. Leveraging the unique role of People's Congresses in foreign relations, building on the results achieved by President Xi Jinping in his major diplomatic initiatives, we continue to increase mutual understanding and political trust between China and other countries to ensure stronger public support for close relations with China in these countries. We encouraged the parliaments of relevant countries to support and approve documents on cooperating with China and strengthen the legal guarantees and policy coordination for jointly advancing the Belt and Road Initiative.
We strengthened international exchanges on the topic of state governance, emphasizing the development of democracy and rule of law, tell the Chinese stories and the story of the People's Congress, and strive to increase the international community's understanding, recognition of, and support for China's development path and foreign and domestic policies. Noticing certain countries' erroneous statement and improper actions on issues affecting China's core interest, we responded with appropriate countermeasures and make our stand known. China's sovereignty, security, and development interests have thus been safeguarded. Seven, we advanced party building in the NPC and the Standing Committee and improved our ability to fulfill our duties in a high-quality, law-based way, strengthening the leading party member group of the Standing Committee in accordance with the Party Central Committee's strategy for exercising governance over the party to see its steering direction, managing the big picture, and guaranteeing implementation. We've given top priority to political building and remained committed to closely align ourselves with the Party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core in terms of political stance, direction, principle, and path. Over the past 5 years, we have requested instructions from and submitted reports to the Central Committee on 202 issues. We've launched study initiative to gain a thorough understanding of Xi Jinping's thoughts on socialism and Chinese characteristics for a new era, carry out activities to ensure better understanding and fulfillment of the party mass line, observe the 3 stricts and 3 earnests, and made it regular practice as an institutional requirement for all party members to gain good commands of the party constitution, party regulation, General Secretary Xi Jinping's major policy addresses, and to meet party standards. These efforts have enabled all of us to develop theoretical competence. We have convened 58 study sessions for leading party member group for the Standing Committee and organized 31 Standing Committee seminars. We strengthened leadership of the leading party member group and Standing Committee offices, set up branches group in special committees, and convened conferences on party building initiatives. With this, we have ensured implementation of strict party self-governance with the NPC and the Standing Committee, working tirelessly to transform and improve our work style. We ensure adherence to the guidelines of the leading party's member group of the NPC Standing Committee on acting the party's mass line and improve our work style and full implementation of the measures on the members of the Chairperson's Council and the Standing Committee observing the Party Central Committee 8-point decisions on poverty and government conduct. We've taken strong measures to address the practice of formalities for formality's sake, bureaucratism, and extravagance. Research is a basic skill we must command to do the work of the NPC well, and it requires us to engage with local communities, familiarize ourselves with the conditions on the ground, establish the facts, and pinpoint problems. Implementing instructions of General Secretary Xi Jinping, we introduced and put into practice in each of the last 4 years specific measures for ensuring good organization deputy conduct in NPC sessions. We established a system for reporting the attendance of members of the Standing Committee and Special Committees at Standing Committee meetings, improving work on media, public communication, and theoretical research. Marking the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the NPC, we carried out a systematic review of the experience gained so far implementing the People's Congress system. We took effective measures to communicate our achievement in developing China's fundamental political system, democracy, and the rule of law, providing authoritative interpretation of major legislation, and hold seminars for explaining laws to ensure compliance, and strive to make the work of People's Congresses more transparent. We founded the China Society for Theoretical Research on the System of People's Congress to strengthen theoretical and practical research on developing socialist democracy and the rule of law. The work of special committees, administrative and working bodies of the Standing Committee and Special Committees and Local People's Congress. Special committees of the NPC have worked to fulfill their duties in accordance with the law. They did productive work in organizing the drafting of major legislation, organizing law enforcement inspection, and carry out in-depth research projects. The administrative and working bodies of the Standing Committee and Special Committees have accepted the special inspection and oversight by Central Discipline Inspection Team, comprehensively strengthened party building, and worked to tighten discipline and improve conduct. They have improved the competence and professionalism of the staff and played their role in assessing and supporting deputies. Local People's Congresses have assisted the Standing Committee in conducting law enforcement inspection, doing research for pending legislation, serving deputies, and carrying out foreign relations work. They have improved the quality of the overall work of the People's Congresses. Fellow deputies, the key to the achievement of the 12th NPC and the Standing Committee have been the strong leadership of the Party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, and the guidance of Xi Jinping thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. These achievements are the result of the work of all NPC deputies, NPC Standing Committees, and Special Committee members, and the staff of the administrative and working bodies of the Standing Committee and Special Committees. The result of the cooperation given by State Council, the Supreme People's Court, the Supreme People's Procuratorate, and local People's Congresses at all levels. And the result of the trust that the Chinese people have placed in us and their support for us. On behalf of the Standing Committee of the 12th NPC, I would like to express our highest respect and sincere gratitude to them all. In review on work of the past 5 years, we are aware that there are still many areas where improvement needs to be made in ensuring law-based governance in all areas. Among these include the need to make legislation more timely, systematic, targeted, and effective. The need for stronger measures to put an end to law being ignored and not being strictly enforced and violations of the law going unpunished. The need to expand communication between the Standing Committee and deputies and between deputies and the public, and the need to improve the organizational and working system of the NPC and the Standing Committees and Special Committees. I will now move on to discuss what we have learned from our work of the past 5 years. Since the 18th National Party Congress, the Party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core has attached importance to the development of the People's Congress system and strengthened leadership over all dimensions of the work of the People's Congresses. In a speech at the meeting marking the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the NPC, General Secretary Xi Jinping expounded on the historical necessity and great significance of establishing the People's Congress system in China, put forward the fundamental requirement of upholding and improving the system, and elaborated on the principles for keeping to the path of socialist political advancement with Chinese characteristics. This speech is a programmatic document guiding our effort to improve the People's Congress system in step with the times and advanced development of socialist democracy. General Secretary Xi Jinping has, in a consecutive of 4 years, presided over meetings of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau and Party Central Committee to hear work briefing by the leading party members group of the NPC Standing Committee, and has on numerous occasions conducted research on questions and issues concerning the work of the People's Congresses. The Party Central Committee has issued documents for issues concerning the party's leadership over legislative work, enhancing the work and development of country and township-level People's Congresses, improving the system by which People's Congress discuss and decide major issues, and strengthening deputy-related work. These documents have charted the course and provided the principle to follow for work of People's Congresses under new circumstances. Through our practical endeavors, we have gained a deeper understanding of the content and properties of the People's Congress system, as well as the functions of the People's Congresses and the laws underpinning their work. First, party leadership is the essential element and the greatest strength of the People's Congress system. We must uphold a centralized, unified leadership of the Party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core. Leadership of the party is the defining feature of socialism with Chinese characteristics and the greatest strength of the system, socialism with Chinese characteristics. As a creation of the Communist Party of China and the Chinese people, the People's Congress system is the fundamental political system for ensuring the unity of party leadership, the running of the country by the people, the law-based governance. Within this system, it is the party's leadership which is the essential element and greatest strength, and as such, the key for guarantee People's Congresses do their work well. The NPC and the Standing Committee, both important political bodies under the leadership of the Party Central Committee, must strengthen their consciousness of the need to maintain political integrity, think in big picture terms, follow leadership, and keep in alignment, upholding the authority and core position of General Secretary Xi Jinping, safeguard the authority and centralized, unified leadership of the Party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, ensure genuine integration of party leadership, the running of the country by its people, law-based governance as an organic whole, and see that party leadership is manifested in everything People's Congresses do.
We must base the planning and progress of our work on the overall work of the party and the country, and promptly respond to the needs of the party and the people. Have the courage to shoulder responsibilities and the ability to make accomplishments and never shirk important tasks, and ensure that the party's positions become the will of the country through legally established procedures. We must strictly implement the system for requesting instructions and submitting reports, regularly submitting work reports to the Party Central Committee, promptly requesting instructions on major issues in our work, and implementing its decisions and plans in their entirety. Second, the party's philosophies constitute a sound guide for upholding and improving the People's Congress system. We must fully observe Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. The establishment and implementation of the People's Congress system in China is an important outcome of integrating the Marxist theory of the state with China's realities. Since the 18th National Party Congress, General Secretary Xi Jinping has put forward a series of new concepts, thoughts and strategies on upholding and improving the People's Congress system and developing socialist democracy. These have substantiated and enriched the core content, basic features and fundamental requirements of the People's Congress system and socialist democracy, and further developed the Marxist theory of the state. As important components of Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, these represent a sound theoretical guide for upholding the system of the long term and continuously improving it in a new era. The NPC and the Standing Committee must thoroughly put into practice Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, earnestly implement all the guiding principles from the 19th National Party Congress, act in complete conformity with the party's basic theory, line and policy, further strengthen the political stand and sense of political responsibility, and develop a stronger theoretical foundation for upholding and improving the People's Congress system and securing solid progress in the work of the People's Congresses in the new era. Following the learning style of combining theory with practice, we must ensure a good command of the requirements of socialism with Chinese characteristics and the realities of both the People's Congress system and our work, and use the latest achievements in adapting Marxism to the Chinese context to guide our practice and lead us through difficulties. With this, we shall see that the People's Congress system and the work of People's Congresses are full of vitality and up to date. Third, the People's Congress system is an important channel and the highest form through which the principle of the people running the country is realized. We must ensure this principle is put into action in China's political and social activities across the board. China is a socialist country with a people's democratic dictatorship led by the working class and based on an alliance of workers and farmers. All state power belongs to the people. The People's Congress system in China is the choice of history and also the Chinese people. Developing socialist democracy means to reflect the will of the people, uphold the rights and interests, unleash their creativity, and develop institutions to guarantee the running of the country. The NPC and its Standing Committee exercise state power on behalf of the people. This requires us to uphold the principal status of the people, develop legal and institutional guarantees for the running of the country, expand their orderly political participation, and ensure their extensive rights and freedoms prescribed by law. We must always put the people first as we carry out legislative and oversight work and handle deputies' suggestions to address problems affecting their well-being and continuously improve their lives and attend to all their concerns. Deputies to the People's Congresses are members of organs of state power. They represent the interests and will of the people and take part in the exercise of state power in accordance with the law. Respecting deputies' principal position is inherent to upholding the people's principal status and ensuring the running of the country. We must support and ensure deputies' law-based performance of their duties and increase communication with deputies and the people. We must exercise our powers and perform our duties in the people's interests, provide services for them, and accept their oversight. Fourth, law-based governance in all fields is an essential requirement of and also an important guarantee for socialism with Chinese characteristics. We must ensure that People's Congresses and their standing committees fully play their important role in advancing law-based governance. The fourth plenary session of the 18th Party Central Committee saw the adoption of the party's first ever standalone decision on strengthening the rule of law. This decision states that the overall goal of comprehensively advancing law-based governance is to establish a system of socialist rule of law with Chinese characteristics and build a socialist country based on the rule of law. Further, the fact that advancing law-based governance has been included as part of China's four-pronged comprehensive strategy is of great significance for improving socialism with Chinese characteristics and modernizing China's system and capacity for governance. The NPC and its standing committee shoulder heavy responsibilities in building China into a socialist country of rule of law. We must understand that to ensure the law-based governance of China, first, we must ensure governance of the country based on a constitution. We need to ensure full implementation of the constitution by fulfilling our oversight duties and safeguard the sanctity of the constitution and the law. We must make legislation our top priority, take a balanced approach to the enactment, revision, abolishment, and interpretation of laws, and improve the Chinese socialist system of laws centered on the Constitution. We must tailor legislation to the needs of reform and development, ensuring reform is advanced under the rule of law, and the rule of law is improved through reform. Focusing on raising the quality of legislation, we need to legislate in a well-conceived, democratic, and law-based manner, so that good laws are made to promote development and ensure good governance. Legislating in a well-conceived manner is essentially about taking into account China's conditions and realities, following and reflecting objective laws, and carrying out legislative work in a sound, coordinated, and systematic way. To ensure the laws we enact stand the test of practice and history, legislating democratically is essentially about making sure we legislate for the people and rely on them in doing so, and expanding the channels through which deputies and public participate in lawmaking to ensure every piece of legislation is constitutional, enjoys people's support, and reflects their will. Legislating in accordance with the law is essentially about exercising legislative powers in strict observance of statutory mandates and procedures, improving legislative systems and mechanisms, optimizing the allocation of legislative functions and powers, and safeguarding the unity of the country's legal system. The oversight over law enforcement and over the work of governments, courts, and procuratorate by People's Congresses and their standing committees is an inherent requirement and institutional arrangement of the People's Congress system. We must effectively exercise the oversight power granted to us by the Constitution and the law, ensuring proper and effective law enforcement as a key task in advancing the law-based governance of China, and strengthen oversight of the work of the State Council, the Supreme People's Court, and the Supreme People's Procuratorate in accordance with the law to ensure law-based administration and judicial impartiality. We need to exercise oversight with greater intensity, ensuring it is proper and effective and produces real results. To exercise proper oversight, it is vital that we uphold the leadership of the party, exercise oversight in strict accordance with our legal mandates and statutory procedures, and have both the courage and competence to fulfill our oversight duty. We need to properly manage the relationship between conducting oversight and providing support so as to form synergy for strengthening and improving the work of the department subject to oversight. To deliver effective oversight, it is crucial that we keep in mind the overall work of the party in the country, take a problem-oriented approach, improve oversight mechanisms, and work towards resolution of the major issues of common concern to deputies and the general public. With this, we shall see the people have a greater and stronger sense of fulfillment, happiness, and security. Fifth, the People's Congress system is an important component of the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics. We must remain committed to it and keep developing it in step with the times. The confidence the Chinese people have in the People's Congress system derives from their confidence in a strong leadership of the CPC and their confidence in the past Syria, system, and culture of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Throughout the historical journey of the cause of the party and the country, this system has demonstrated tremendous political strength and great organizational effectiveness. It has proved through practice to be an effective political system, enabling us to act and deliver. And we can produce real results through the People's Congress system. We must keep to the path of socialist political advancement with Chinese characteristics, have full confidence in the People's Congress system, and ensure a more solid institutional guarantee for the prosperity and enduring stability of the party and the country. Having full confidence in our system shall in no way mean being complacent, much less resting on our laurels. In line with the principle of always striving for improvement by learning from past experiences, we must keep carrying out explorations to develop new mechanisms for our legislative, oversight, and deputy-related work, enrich and broaden the practice of People's Congresses to keep their work up to date, and keep enhancing and expanding the strengths and unique features of our fundamental political system. We must closely communicate with local People's Congresses, strengthen guidance and support for their work, expand cooperation and coordination and exchanges, and work with them to ensure that the People's Congress system and the work of People's Congresses move with the times. Now, let me move on to discuss what we propose for 2018. 2018 is the first year for putting into action all the guiding principles of the party's 19th National Congress, and also the year in which, according to law, the 13th NPC and its standing committee assume their duties. At the 19th National Congress, the party established the historical position of Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, took its first steps on a new journey to build a modern socialist country, and charted the course forward for the cause of the party and the country. It also formulated major plans on developing socialist democracy and improving the institutions through which the people run the country. It also set out clear requirements for advancing the work of the People's Congresses in a new era and promoting law-based governance. The future of the People's Congress system shines brighter than ever, and there is an even stronger sense of pride in the mission of the NPC and its standing committee.
Guided by Xi Jinping's thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, and fully implementing all the guiding principles from the 19th National Party Congress and the first, second, and third plenary session of the 19th Party Central Committee, we must maintain the unity of the party leadership, the running of the country by its people, and law-based governance, uphold long-term and steadily improve the People's Congress system, fulfill our functions and duties as stipulated in the Constitution and the law, and break new grounds in the work of the People's Congresses in the new era. We must ensure the party's leadership overall work, uphold the authority and core position of General Secretary Xi Jinping, safeguard the authority and centralized unified leadership of the Party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, and ensure implementation of the party's lines, principles, and policies, the Party Central Committee decision and plans in all domains of work of People's Congresses. Adhering to the principle that all state power belongs to the people, we need to strengthen the institution which ensure the running of the country by the people and support and ensure their access to state power through People's Congresses. In advancing law-based governance in all fields, we must give priority to enforcing the Constitution. We need to ensure enforcement of and compliance with the Constitution, increase publicity and education of the Constitution, and raise to a new level our work on promoting the governance of the country based on the Constitution and the law. We should keep in mind the overall work of the party and the country as we exercise our statutory power of enacting laws, conducting oversight, making decisions, and appointing and removing officials. We should see that the strengthening of China's fundamental political system are leveraged and the state organizes and advances all endeavors in a unified and effective way to meet the ever-growing needs of the people for a better life. The Chairperson's Council of the 12th NPC Standing Committee has approved in principle the proposed key task and legislative and oversight work plans for 2018 for the new Standing Committee and made following preliminary arrangement for this year's work. First, continue to strengthen legislative work. A legislative program of the 13th NPC Standing Committee will be drawn up to plan legislative work for the next 5 years. The organic law for a state institution will be improved with revision to made to the organic law of the People's Courts, the organic law of the People's Procuratorate, and the civil service law. The system of laws for developing modernized economy will be improved. Work on compiling the civil code will move faster, so its individual books can undergo deliberation. In line with the principle of tax legality, we have made plans for producing a tax law on farmland use for non-agricultural purposes, a law on vehicle purchase tax, and resource tax law, for conducting research to formulate a real estate tax law, and for revising the law on tax collection and administration. Steps will be taken to formulate a foreign investment law and an e-commerce law, and to revise the law on the contracting on rural land and the land administration law. Legislative efforts in the social, cultural, and environmental sectors will be strengthened to formulate a community correction law, a law on promoting basic medical and health care, and a law on prevention and control of soil pollution, and to revise the law on the prevention and control of environmental pollution caused by solid waste. The criminal procedure law will also be revised. Work on authorization and reform decisions will continue to be carried out effectively to ensure reforms proceed smoothly and in line with the rule of law. Second, continue to strengthen the oversight work, with a focus on promoting high-quality development and helping ensure success with 3 critical initiatives to prevent and diffuse major tasks, reduce poverty with target measures, and prevent and control pollution. We've made plans for inspecting the enforcement of the statistic law, the air pollution prevention control law, the marine environmental protection law, the law on protecting against the mitigation earthquake disasters, the law on the quality and safety and agricultural products, and the law on prevention control of infectious diseases. A midterm assessment report on the implementation of 13th five-year plan will be heard and deliberated, and will report on the management of state-owned assets and implementation of major national science and technological programs and advancement of supply-side structural reform. In agriculture, the progress in promoting coordinated development of compulsory education in urban rural areas, the allocation and use of government funds for medical and healthcare, the protection and the rights and interest of overseas Chinese investigation, research on local government debt, and poverty alleviation will be carried out. We've also made plans for strengthening oversight of judicial work, hearing and deliberating reports on the work of People's Courts to ensure enforcement of rulings, and the work of People's Procuratorate to strengthen their legal oversight over civil litigation and over the execution of judgments. Improving will be made to our system and capacity for recording and reviewing normative documents, and constitutional compliance inspection will be advanced to address any inconsistency with the Constitution and law. Third, continue to improve work-related deputies. The system for work-related deputies will be improved to support and ensure deputies' law-based performance of their duties, enable them to play a bigger role. The Standing Committee will strengthen communication with deputies and see they get involved in this work and the work of the Special Committee on a broader and more profound basis. Deputies will be encouraged to foster ties with the people and will be invited to attend inspection tours and research projects on specific topics. Efforts will be made to ensure more careful deliberation about deputies' proposals and more efficient handling of their suggestions. Detailed study plans will be formulated to ensure all deputies to the new NPC attend at least one study on training sessions during their tenure. Steps will be taken to help deputies improve their thinking and conduct the strengthened oversight over the performance of duties. Guidance will be provided to local people's congresses to help them with their work on legislation, oversight, and discussion on decisions making. Improving will be made to the NPC work on international exchanges, media, public communication, and theoretical research, and standing committees' work on capacity building. We believe that under the strong leadership of the party's Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping as core, and under the sound guidance of Xi Jinping thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, and with the support of the Chinese people of all ethnic groups, the new NPC and its standing committee will prove worthy of the great trust placed in them, fulfill their mission, and write a new chapter in the work of People's Congresses in a new era.
Because this doesn't look...
Fellow deputies, the great dream of national rejuvenation encourages us to keep striving. The great era inspires us to forge ahead, rallying even closer around the Party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core. Let us hold high the banner of socialism with Chinese characteristics, thoroughly study and apply Xi Jinping thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, remain true to our mission, move forward with a pioneering spirit, and work tirelessly to secure a decisive victory, to finishing the building of a moderately prosperous society in all respects, ensure the great success of socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, and realize the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation.
Well, that's China's top legislator Zhang Dejiang giving a report of the NPC Standing Committee, the 12th National People's Congress Standing Committee. He reviewed what has